Okay, excellent. Well, we're gonna get the data science meeting started. Before we do, everyone just give some quick introductions and what you're hoping to cover today. And if people continue joining in today, we'll stop and see what they want to cover.
I can start real quick. I'm Adrian. I'm here mostly just covering for Callie, I guess. I work very closely with her, so I'm just kind of covering and hoping to help answer questions about potentially Augur 8 knot stuff if those come up, but I don't really have any specific agenda items really. So
Yeah, introduction, right? So I'm Ernest. I have been active in the working group for a while, and I happen to have been a maintainer recently. And most of my work has been on the foundational stuff, which we are now trying to build up to become an independent project that we call Ecoscope. So that's pretty much about me. I do have a few questions about it not, so maybe in the course of the meeting I will ask. Sally, I'm muted.
Sorry. I was saying, I think we can probably just dive in. I'm going to set up a little bit around the agenda, which is magically happening. I love open source. Yeah, I think we can have a discussion around Augur and 8 knot. Yeah, I will just take excellent notes. I have a few questions myself. I've been using Augur particularly. Uh, and Welcome in. We're just at introductions, so say hello if you just come in.
I think you wanted Arafat to introduce herself, right?
Yeah, but it's all right if they can't join in at this moment. Um, we can just jump in on the Augur 8 knot discussion.
Okay, yeah. Um, Yesterday I think Sal is aware that I submitted application for the sovereign tech fellowship by the SDA, and one of the requirements was to contribute to three open source project, which I don't think is straight, but just to meet that requirement, I happen to currently contribute to Chaos and OpenTelemetry, and I just used Augur 8 not as the third one, which my contribution is still at the very early stage. I'm still yet to send a PR, but I have like two issues that I think I could, work on, which is both of them were opened by Kali, but unfortunately she's not here. So I responded, I think earlier today, that if I could get assigned to the issue just for it to be on my profile in case the SDF reviewers are doing that before I send the PR. But I think with the current plan that I have, that I made in the early hours of today, I should, if there are no setting up issues, foreseen contingencies, I should be sending a PR in a few days. So the issues that I want to work on is the visualization that for both activity, which Kali raised. I think I can quickly find that and share with you. The point is not necessarily the EU, but just assigning me to that particular issue name so that it could show on my profile. So
do you
it's
have
Yeah,
the links to these issues?
yeah. Bring in the
which
issue numbers and
I'm very I with some of the complications happening in the Augur community right now, if you're looking specifically to be assigned to issues that are in the Chaos org, um, I have the ability to do that on basically any Chaos repo. Augur specifically is not currently in the Chaos org for reasons I will
I,
not get into here.
I actually meant it not the one on Red Hat
Okay, so
repo.
eight not technically is not in the Chaos org yet either, but I do have access to that too if that would help you. I'm not sure how strict the application is on wanting specifically Chaos if that's what you're applying for, but I can do that if you send me the issues.
that's no problem. It works really well with our plan, and it's just open source contributions.
Oh, okay. Oh, it's very broad. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, this and the second one. I will send the second one, but this is the one I'm currently focusing on. But just for reviewer's sake, to meet the reviewer too,
Is
because
estat your username?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. Or did I send? Okay, yeah. Then today, a follow-up question to that is today I noticed that the sample environment variable on that repo has like a mock DB of Augur. So I was going to ask, is that sufficient for me to do whatever I want to do
Which repo
with
did you say that was in?
the current structure on the um it's not repo. There is a environmental variable that is like a sample, for database connection to Augur. So I noticed that is a mock database, and I wanted to confirm. I think you should be able to answer that whether it's sufficient for me to do all my connections along the way. So, I'm just anticipating problems like
Can you be a little more specific of where you're seeing? Is that in is that like the sample environment variables? Like
yes,
where are
yes.
you seeing that in the repository?
Yeah, I will send that as well. It is on the root repo for the one I just sent to you now. I will send that as well. This is the second issue. Oh, Kali is here. Wow.
So
I thought it's
8.0 right now has so we have I think there's a Docker image somewhere. I need to go dig through the CI config to grab the exact name. But we basically, in order to have some sort of vague unit tests, just to make sure that pull requests don't break 8.0, um, we do, I think we have, there's a Docker image I built quite a while ago now that basically is just, it's basically, I took an Augur database that's basically freshly initialized. It's empty, but it's schematically correct, and just shipped it in a Docker container. So it's not really best practice, but at least it's enough to have a database to connect to so that all 8.0 will at least start up. Um, so that's what that probably is. Um, I am planning to kind of extend that with uh, some more, like to actually have sort of an image that actually has a more current database and or actually has a couple of small repositories in it. Um, so I'm not 100% sure when I can get to that, but that's one of the things I'm trying to work on it, um, work on doing soon. So I think if you wanted to try pulling that image and using that locally, that should work, and the credentials in that sample should be valid for that. But that's like basically an empty database, so the credentials don't get you very much.
Oh, are those
Alice.
credentials real? Or, I mean, to my knowledge, those were just placeholders for people to know the format for the credentials.
I think they are real. It's just for that. Um, I need to double check, but I think there was a purpose for having real credentials in there. Otherwise, we would have just put your password here.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. But it's also just like a Docker image that happened at one moment in time.
Um,
yeah, pretty much. I've been trying to kind of systematic, like get that more.
Yeah.
Like I'd like to have one of my goals for the more Augur side of this is we already have some testing in place that basically will run the Docker container for Augur and for like 3 minutes or something in CI and look for specific log lines to make sure it started up. I'd like to build on that and see, okay, can we also run Augur on a couple of tiny repos that only take a few minutes to collect, and then we can actually make some assertions about, okay, this tiny archived repo is fully collected in CI, and we can check the database to make sure the data is as we expect. I think that's a natural place to like, okay, at the end of that build, that Docker job, build an image and push it somewhere so that somebody can just pull down an image with like if all you need is a good enough Augur database with data to connect something else to, like that I think would be a good purpose of that.
Nice.
But that's I haven't gotten to that yet.
Sorry. Is it possible for you to point me to that Docker image that you mentioned earlier, that you said is in the
Working
cloud?
on finding that, I think.
Excellent. Because I think that gives us an opportunity. We can follow up on this like in writing and in the following weeks, but like really getting a chance to build hygienically from that Docker image is a cool opportunity and we can think about it a little bit, which is nice. Um, and then from there, right now, Ernest, do you think you got any questions on bringing in the foundation stats stuff, or do you want to give it a pass through?
Sorry, I didn't get that.
So I'm interested in building out with the Docker image, but I'm also curious about like right now, fundamentally, for any of your pipelines, are you blocked?
Oh, I don't think we should worry about that yet,
Yeah,
for what we currently have. But when we want to connect to instances, yeah, that should definitely be the approach.
yeah, cool.
So I'm noticing I found the Docker link, the Docker image to that empty database. And our CI is basically just adding that as a service to the YAML file, to the Docker Compose. Like I think the service name is mockdb, and then that's the image. I'm noticing that's I don't know. I don't think that Docker image, like that Docker image should still be around. It looks like it's based in the chaos org. So I don't think that would be affected by any of the repository things going on in Augur. So that I would say give that a try first and let me know, ping me on Slack if you have issues pulling that or getting that to work. Worst case, I can just run a local Docker, a local Augur install on my machine on a couple of small repos, wait for it to get fully collected, and then just push an image somewhere with that database if that would help you. Um, like I can always kind of manually redo this until I have the time to actually go and make it an automatic process.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, I just linked in chat what we did for the self-merge visualization. And so the idea would be that for every visualization, it would have this check mark on the 8 side of each of the steps that need to be done to get a visualization um, merged
Nice.
into 8 and one of those steps is the notebook and the data science working group. So it's like a sub portion of the overall. And so I'm going to be creating the issues and populating all of them with like the to-do list and opening it on the 8 side. So any feedback on stuff that I should include or ways to improve that process, let me know because this would be a good time before I go and do a whole bunch of them and then have to update later.
Cool. I had a lot of fun building out. I'll bring a link for this, one sec. But building out this clue line visualization, it might not be the most expected visualization for it, but I went and I just like scanned Kubernetes. Um, I'll bring up a link to it and I'll just have it as reference. But I'd love to see more, like what I enjoyed about this was trying to get like a minimal visualization of like what countries, what jurisdictions are consuming and producing. Um, so I'll bring that up in just a second. But for
Are
now,
you familiar with the country, like the things that you should be aware of when it comes to looking at country data? Just as a,
yes, yeah, but
okay.
this is just looking at like jurisdiction.
Okay. Yeah, because we pretty much avoid any country analysis like the plague so that we don't have to remove contributors from specific countries. But if you're like analyzing a community that you're not, pretty much as a community, you are not responsible to know where everybody is at. But if you know that somebody is in China or Iran, you are liable to remove them from the community. So it is something to kind of be aware of when it comes to doing analysis on location.
Yeah. Yeah. But the visualizations were really nice. Does
Oh
it
yeah.
matter about, so what about the consuming? So what I'm only able to look at are like consumption of open source. Like I'm looking at who's consuming it.
How are you? What are you counting as consume, like a download?
Yeah.
Ooh, controversial. Um, oh no, I don't mean that in a I got that. I didn't mean that in a mad way. I mean that in like a very literal. Downloads are very controversial and like I feel like in the overall measurement community whenever it comes to because of how much it miscounts it. Like that it is a very it can be a misleading metric.
Yeah.
Because it can count like I guess you're looking at purely from like a I just want to see if a location is represented rather than the scale. Is that what you're going for?
Yeah, so like in my consumer class, I get a lot of questions like, okay, so is the European Union like actively contributing to this space or not? So I have a line that just shows across all the EU, known active like consumption, and that works really well. And it's a very anonymous aggregate, but it did use this baseline to get it.
Interesting. Yeah, I'd be curious if Don comes back around at certain points or talking to Greg, because I would say a lot of people who do analysis on open source pretty much refuse to look at any download data, including myself, because of the like because it's a little bit different whenever the miss or not even the miscounts, but if the stuff is at scale, so it's like, oh, if in this way this could undercount in this way and it could overcount in another way, if they're scale wise similar, then you're like kind of like, okay, that's a bit of a wash. But the ways in which the counting can be done of man, if somebody just like sets up a certain way of downloading a server in a certain way or using a VPN, it just completely like messes with the entire like analysis. Like very small things can like throw things out the window.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah. But I think yeah, I think what I'm looking at is like I'm looking for really the proof that some like small areas are consuming, like tribal nations or Pueblo nations or like,
Yeah.
you
Because
know,
if the
like
answer
small
is
areas.
like consumption as a check mark rather than a scale, completely agree. Does
Yeah.
that make sense? Or you're just like saying like this exists here rather than like oh because if you're trying to compare scale, that can be a problem.
No, I don't think so. Yeah, it's really not something that would go into like a consumer report, but like a government is going to be interested in understanding how much from their citizenship is publicly consuming intentionally because it's a government platform, right?
Okay.
So, yeah. But yeah, maybe a discussion that we should probably have and loop in on.
Yes, I do. This is a good. I'm glad, like, I think that it's good to bring in a different perspective of this because I think that the conversation has just been stopped at no, we should not do this for a while. And that might not be the correct, like, I'm, I would be very curious for you to bring up, like, kind of like show what you're doing analysis wise, why, like, you're, like, kind of backing behind of, like, why this isn't, like, misrepresentation of counts as, like, a double negative or like showing why it is like valid for this like thing and having an open discussion around it because this probably was a bit before you were involved, but this was like this used to be like the topic that everyone was talking about all the time. Counting download metrics, why we shouldn't, like to the point of like doing a joint blog post of saying we refuse to count as like researchers in this space, please stop asking us to count downloads. But I like that you have a different idea on it. I think it's worth discussing again. Because just because we
Yeah.
have been saying it doesn't mean that we should.
Well, okay, so I think it probably came from a very different space and energy and like very much I come from this I have a consultancy with people that never come to this room because I'm just in it building the things with and for them, right?
Yes.
And here's what it looks like when someone receives the little like cog in the wheel of my system that is Augur. So we'll go through first, and it'll be like a tribal nation, a security council, and we'll go through 8 metrics, and we'll go through everything from hardware to software. Like, what do you have? What do you know you have? What do you have attestation for? Like, because they have federal and state guidelines, right? So we go through all of the open standards and regulation. And then if we want to see how, like, and specifically, like, for a like tribal nation, very easy to get that if they're doing it on behalf of a government, they have to do it publicly, as all governments do. So then we can go and track that so that we can show what percentage of contribution they have, which is something that they're all very interested in. But if that, I would be interested if, like, from that frame and from that understanding, is that unethical? That is a question that we should probably have on another call. But I'm
Yeah,
glad that
because I
it came
wouldn't say the
up.
ethics isn't usually the conversation, but it's more of, is this, do these counts actually give us something useful? Because, but if you're very, if you know a lot about what are the systems that are downloading these files, and is it going to, is a CI/CD system that's calling it a bunch of different times, or if you're familiar with how this data is being downloaded, or not data, but the project is being downloaded and the things that go into the count, that is a different scope, which I think is a better conversation of when is download data useful? If instead of where I think a lot of places right now and like the open source analysis space is that download data is never useful, and that might not be the right way of thinking about it. Um, and so that's more of where I'll be really curious to see the use case and the count and all this different stuff, because it's just a like it challenges what has been assumed in this space, which makes it very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it might be an outlier case, but I think this is an
Yeah,
interesting situation of, like, within the Linux Foundation, like, yeah, that's definitely like a pipeline that I've built because it's been requested.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, it wouldn't go into a Linux Foundation report. I understand that. But if it's an issue to do that under this, like, license and work, we should talk about that because I'm curious. I'm
There's
surprised.
no license issue.
Yeah.
It's more of just like from a method, like as a, like from the perception of research, like myself as a researcher, or, and I'm only speaking for Don and Greg Sutcliffe because they've spoken like very definitively and publicly about it. It's not like an ethics thing, but a issue with how, like, the value of, like, if you're comparing the idea that you're comparing apples to oranges and saying, oh, this one project, or in this one place there's 1,000 downloads, and this one place there's 5,000 downloads, because of the different ways that the, like, their like counts of downloads can occur, that the scale can be like, that doesn't mean like that it does not mean
Yeah.
anything in the
Yeah.
scope of it, because you think about like the different ways that things can be overcounted and undercounted, and the fact that those things are not at scale to one
I
another.
think I think it's probably not too big of a problem because this sounds like this was probably like a center of report or like something that was going to considered, you know, like a research report or a white paper. That is a single metric out of quite literally over 100 that I look at. It's not
Yeah.
something that we weight decisions by. Um, yeah. So I think it's all
Here's,
right.
yeah, in case you're curious, there is some. I don't think I don't know if Dawn's put out anything, but this is a blog post from. Oh, wow, that is not link not working anymore. Lovely. I'll try to find that.
I think Ali is trying to find the okay.
A link to it. Do we want to, I mean, in the meantime, this is definitely like a topic that we can come back to. But I really think for like my use case, it's just like it's a use that I've had for Augur. I've used it for other things as well, but I just liked my visualization for it. That's all.
Yeah, I would be curious, and like
Yeah.
I guess where does the down, or I didn't even know that Augur got download data.
So what I've been doing is I created a system which just says, okay, for what you already have as a security posture, what do you do? And then I compare that to what, like, OpenSSF has available, for example. Like, what are the free and open tools or the hardware that you would want to use? And then giving them the option of like, do you want to look at the contributor data for that if you've been contributing? Because these are like groups that have identifiable names and they're trying to find themselves. The needle in the haystack is them. So is that a problem? Because that's not for a broad audience. That's not making a big argument.
Yeah, I
It's
guess
not unethical.
I'm not even because if you're using Augur, I guess can you repeat the end like where/when are you getting download data in this? Because I'm still not. I don't. I think I'm.
Well,
That's what I'm.
so on my side here, what I had, the only thing that so that was the thing where we got off onto downloads because I was looking at that as well. But what I have in here is just a ring that shows like where the like relative geography is for the contributors to Kubernetes.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Is that a problem?
Yes. If you're providing that, okay, now I get so the location data, if that is something that you're providing to the CNCF, I would recommend blacking out any country that has any type of trade embargo with the US. So usually
Interesting.
the two big concerns are Iran and China. And so like if the CNCF if Kubernetes knows that they have contributors that are contributing from China or Iran, they are liable to remove them. But they are not required to know. So if you do not seek out said information, you are not responsible. But if you do know that, it is a legal liability that you have to remove them from the community. So that's everyone has gone about doing that. So this is like outside of
Right.
download data, but from the contributor data of how you go about making sure that that is not a piece of information that the community is provided.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's fine. Yeah.
Hmm.
I'm not like bouncing it back to the community. I do it in
Oh
like
yeah,
printed reports.
yeah, because as long as
Um,
you're doing consumer reports, then it's like, yeah, then you're fine. It's just something that's like, oh, if you're working with the Linux Foundation, if you're working with the Linux Foundation, analyzing a Linux Foundation's projects, and then that report has,
yeah. Well, it's interesting because I thought like Kubernetes would be super safe because I thought it would be like they've limited their liability and really making sure they know who's contributing. But yeah, it's good to just make sure if it's going to be in any way public, which is open source. So
yes,
I'm glad we had this discussion because that's an angle I did not know.
yes, it is a kind of a weird. There's so many weird corner cases when it comes to like data and analysis, which is the interesting sides of it.
Yeah, and the antitrust. But good to know. Okay. I want us to move on. We've got about 20 more minutes. Let's talk a little bit about the like next steps of formalizing our latest like project repository, Okioscope. I think I'm saying that right. Um, but Ernest, you've given a description of this before, but just give another quick pitch, and then we are going to talk a little bit about like where does it fit inside the CHAOSS repository, and then within that we are going to put in a like formal maintainer agreement, and once we put that in place, we should come up with a like good way to make sure that that is like solid and communicated, but using that as a little bit of a like marketing campaign for the project to get more contributors as well. Um, so yeah, I'd love thoughts on that, but Ernest, take it away.
Yeah, so we got the naming inspiration from Augur, and it says that because foundational staff project that we started working on, the unique value that is adding is that instead of measuring individual piece of projects that Augur does, we are now interested in how does communication metrics reported across different foundations, how does it help us to answer sustainability questions on a cross-foundational level. So, and because that's an ecosystem level measurement, so we now said, let us measure ecosystem, which is what we now call ecoscope. Yeah, that's pretty much about the naming. And I think that should be.
Yeah, what makes this interesting for me is like we've gotten multi-year data from Apache Software Foundation, Eclipse Foundation, CNCF, and we're at a really interesting moment in time with the CRA. We're looking at some of their patterns of contributor activity. That's going to change because of strong regulation from the European Union right now on stewards of open source. So we're doing this like moment, like up to this moment in time analysis and looking for the signals that showed like really positive and robust communities, which is very cool. Those structures are both very different in their stewardship of open source and very different in their JSON schematics. So it's not the easiest, but we are continuing to put those together. So with that, it's an interesting, like it is a data science project and turning into a dashboard for ongoing like analytics. Are we ready to put that at the like project level of the chaos repository generally? And if so, I'm sure there's a few lines that we'll have to go to ensure that's solid. Any advice?
So is the ask the dashboard's ready to put it into the working group repository under its own like top level directory? Is that kind of
Yeah, because it's been sitting inside of the data repository because it started as a data project, but now it is a formal project. Like Don is happy to have as a project and Ernest is the maintainer. So we've got everything we solidly need to have it be active at that level.
yeah, putting it in as under its kind of similar, which we're gonna have to rename, but like similar to how we did like the Augur notebooks, it seems like it would make sense to have like a top level directory specifically for this.
Yes. Yeah. And it has a good name, and I try to give it a silly little logo that looks a little bit like the Chaos logo. Yeah. So that's the ask there. I think probably, I mean, we formalized it as an issue for now, but that was very much just a draft of like, here's the template for it. Um, yeah. So is there anything that we want? I mean, I'm thinking of this at the level of if there's any more repositories that come up and bubble through the system, is there anything that we'd want to do at this stage before creating a like project formally within Chaos or anything that we need to do? Because I think we've gone through the steps and the issue is public. So I think we're all right.
Yeah, it makes it easier that we're just doing it under this repository rather than like opening a new repository for another project. Like if the
Yeah.
scope grew to that size, that would make sense, but I think this is a better approach for like something that's pretty
Yeah.
small scale.
Yeah, and the nice thing is, I think with Chaos, we actually are getting a bit of an ecosystem of projects. These projects work together,
Yeah.
so it's nice to keep them together.
Yeah, definitely. And especially like with some of the conversations that are happening behind the scenes, I think there's multiple projects that are like data science focused projects that are talking about donating to chaos. So it's going to become, which I also think is with some of the other crazy things that are going on. There, it's not just one person who's developing software here. In chaos, there's a lot of people at this point that are. And so I think that it's good that all the things that are kind of like orbiting around chaos, the more that they are officially under chaos, I think helps in a lot of way build reputation that chaos is more than just like theoretical like metrics community, which I think it has been for a while, and prevents some people from making some, I don't think, valid claims about a singular person being the only software maintainer in chaos.
Yeah, that's not possible under the bylines, unfortunately. So we'll be all right. Okay. The next thing that brings us to is the maintainer agreement. So we've drafted a version of this. It's had a couple of review rounds. I've had a couple of just like nice comments from community members on it, which I wasn't expecting, which is really nice. So I think we're ready to publish it, make it live, but I want to do that after the repo is like reinitialized at a project level, and then immediately I will bring in Ernest under that, and then we'll start searching for the next maintainer so that we don't get burnt out.
Yeah. Yeah, I was hoping that Kyle would be on the call. So we've talked about this a little bit, and I've talked about this with Kyle, that that would be the hope. Like, there is our, like, that Kyle would be that next maintainer to kind of come and be more involved in this, like in this, like he is involved, but become more of a maintainer in this repository.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be perfect. So yeah, I can bring the maintainer agreement back in as soon as you get that repo live. But is there anything else that we need to cover on that, or we'll just I'll say like bring it in on the next agenda?
Yeah, I think it'd be good to bring in for the next agenda because I also think there might be. Um, are we recording right now? I don't.
We are, but
Okay.
if we finish up the agenda, we can have a chat afterwards.
Yeah, I was just saying that the maintainer agreement might be nice to adopt in other areas of chaos that might be looking for more official ways to
No, it
solidify
should be adopted
maintainers and
everywhere because this is how we do it in cybersecurity, and sometimes cybersecurity is right.
but yeah, if we want to turn off the recording, then I can say more.
Excellent. Is there anything else that we need to cover today on the agenda? I think we're good to go. I think we're set. All right, Adrian, you have control of the recording.